90-Day Fiancé. Before the 90-Day star Brian Muniz's shocking past involves 4 marriages and 3 engagements, including a wife he is still married to. Brian is a quadriplegic man from Harvard where he works as an Uber driver. Brian used to be a professional rugby player and coach. His interest in the sport took Brian to a lot of countries, including Brazil. Brian felt the women in Brazil were more accepting of him as a man in a wheelchair. Brazil is where Brian got engaged thrice. Brian met a single mom called Ingrid on a dating app. Brian and Ingrid were in a long-distance relationship for 2 years before he went to meet her in person. Once they met, Ingrid found out that Brian had lied to her about his age. Ingrid thought Brian was 45 when Brian was in his mid-50s. He also concealed the truth about the accident that led to him becoming a quadriplegic and never told Ingrid he was a drug dealer and user in the past. In the latest episode, Ingrid found out Brian had been married 4 times. Brian grew up in Chicago, inner city. His father wasn't around much, so it was his mom who raised Brian and his siblings on her own. She did the best she could, but it was a constant struggle. When Brian was 19 years old, he married his high school sweetheart. Brian welcomed a daughter named Brianna with his first wife. Brian was married to his first ex-wife for 3 years before they got divorced. Brian's daughter was everything to him, so he did whatever he could to do to support her. During his introduction, Brian mentioned that he was shot with a small caliber handgun when he was 27 years old. Brian's life turned upside down after the incident. The bullet hit Brian in his spinal cord and left him quadriplegic. 2 men were waiting for Brian as he came home. One of them crossed the street to go to his car and asked Brian to get out with his gun. Brian was being carjacked, but he was a young guy from the inner city who wasn't scared by the gun or threats. Brian thought he could maybe grab the man and get away from the situation, but he got shot, and it was instant paralysis from the waist down. Brian was hiding a crucial bit of information about the incident in episode 1, which he revealed after meeting Ingrid in person. Brian worked as a drug dealer at the time. He had met his second ex-wife through his job. He was popular, making more money than he ever had in his life and also using himself. When he got his wake-up call, he told his wife he didn't love her anymore. In September 2024, Mary Pants revealed that Brian was married but to his ex-wife, not Ingrid. Brian's current wife's name is Francely. They had been in a long-distance relationship since 2017 and got engaged in 2019. Brian and Francely had a YouTube channel with over 3,000 subscribers where they shared their journey. Brian married Francely in 2022. However, the problems in the marriage started when Brian and Francely started living together in Brazil. The blogger suggested Brian may have cheated on Francely during the marriage. Divorce proceedings have been ongoing since the summer of 2023. Brian has been accused of allegedly concealing assets by transferring his car and home to others' names. It appears Brian had a strategy to influence the division of assets. In Brazil, there is typically a 50-50 split. In November 2024, Mary Pants posted more shocking details about Brian and his ex-wife. Brian took Ingrid to a resort on the show in Recife, Brazil. However, the resort was near Brian's ex-wife's home. As per Francely, Brian was being so petty that he posted a video online of himself to taunt her from the resort captioned, "It's much lighter now, much better without you." He wanted to take Ingrid to all the places they had planned on going to. Francely also accused Brian of allegedly spying on her and trying to force her into a public confrontation. As per Brian's 4th ex-wife, he had started seeing Ingrid just a few months after their wedding. Francely claims that Brian used her for a Brazilian green card and left her after he received it. She also claimed that the 90-Day Fiancé, before the 90-Day star, allegedly blocked her credit cards, leaving several debts in her name. Francely spoke about Brian making fake social media pages to harass her online. She also mentioned that she was contacted to be on the show for a love triangle storyline, but she refused.